These badges are awesome, but it's hard to walk around because they keep smacking me. So, this is Hacking Non-Traditional Systems by Santana. That's me. I go by Connection. I prefer Connection, actually. Surprisingly, a lot of people are called Lewis, and it's really, really weird when someone calls someone else and I look around. I've met a lot of you guys. You guys are cool. I probably introduced myself as Connection, so shouldn't come as a surprise, I guess. And that did not click to the next slide. All right. So who am I? I'm an independent security. That got cut off. Independent security researcher. Just kind of do my own thing and hang out. I'm a security consultant at Accuvant Labs. Man, there's some weird lines on this screen. Is it the projector? Okay. So I'm a security consultant with Accuvant Labs because I like to get paid to hack things. It kind of works pretty well for me. I'm a newbie hardware hacker. Newbie got cut off somehow. There's some people in here that were like hacking the badges, and I was like, no, I can't do any of that. I don't know. I'm not the biggest electrical engineer guy. On Twitter, I go by Hack Talk Blog, so you probably see me retweet things or like yell at people. That's my favorite pastime. And on the general interwebs, I go by Connection. So what's the point? The major point in this talk is that physical security sucks. A lot of these hacks are pulled off simply because, due to the very nature of what I have called non-traditional systems, you have to have that user interaction. You've got to have that physical security, that physical availability to your clients, and it's often an afterthought, as I'll talk about. And man, if physical security would just step their game up a bit, a lot of these hacks would be inefficient, and I wouldn't be giving this talk today. So I guess thanks for crappy physical security. So yeah, the big problem, physical security. If you can see here, here I'll go on this side. There's a locked box, something important, but like with this really bad like electrical tape, they made like a keychain with, and here's the key that goes directly into that lock. I hope that's not mission critical. Accessible USB ports. There's no reason why you should ever let a consumer plug their USB port into your machine. It's going to end badly, except for the hacker. So let's talk more about physical security. It's rudimentary, often a second thought, and quite honestly, in a number of occasions, it's completely non-existent. Rudimentary in that, like, it might be like a really bad lock, and like 2 pins. I've seen 2 pins in locks to cache boxes. Not smart. Come on, guys. It's often a second thought. I look at a lot of these machines and I'm like, oh, it's really like locked down from a software level, from a network level, but I feel like they just like slapped a lock on it and called their day for physical security. They were like, oh, a lock, it's good enough. We won't even bother testing the lock or making sure it's a good lock. And it's also like I've run into things where it's completely non-existent. I've tested self-checkout units where there's like latches that look like they're locked, and it's got access to various parts of the machine. You walk up, you move the latch a little bit to the left, and oh, it's not actually a lock, it's just a latch. It's opened up, and you got access to the guts, access to a bunch of fun stuff, and so that's why I say like it seems like it's a second thought. Like, had they been thinking it through, hey, we've got this storage area, we're going to put a bunch of stuff, maybe we should put a lock. Nah, no one will ever open that thing. So with these systems, there are a ton of common vulnerabilities. Like, you will see the same vulnerabilities over and over and over. It's almost nauseating how prevalent they are. But some key points from this are that devices within the same manufacturer or even within the same product line often like have a ton of code reuse or like similar form factor design. And so if you find a physical flaw or a security flaw in one of these things, they don't know that it's vulnerable, so they apply it to all the things, which causes problems because if you manage to get your hands on one bug, you can spread it along their entire product line and own them each and every time pretty reliably. They're highly trivial, and this includes like breaking out of their kiosk software or like even just some of the hacks you can pull off, like I've seen really bad things where like they're running really old school war FTPD on their box, and you're like, wow, really? There's an exploit for that in Metasploit that everyone knows about, and that's not hard at all. And you'll see that because they've never had the like. They don't see them as a non-traditional system, which is like, I guess I should have defined that earlier, sorry. But a non-traditional system is a network-connected device, which you're not seeing as your typical computer. So, like, if this projector was connected to your network, I'd want to hack that because your projector's probably not that secure, but it's connected to your network. So if I can pop that, I can start scanning your network and attacking you. So this includes things like kiosks, vending machines, self-checkout units, and like damn near anything you'll see in a store that's plugged in lets you interact with it and have fun. Those those little like cell phone charging stations. I've taken a look at some of those and stuff. So yeah, like a lot of these things are highly trivial. It's easy to hack these things because no one's out hacking projectors or like cell phone charging stations. A lot of them use plain text communication. This is both on the hardware level as well as like the software and network communication level. So like on the hardware level, you're looking at things like just your typical stuff like I2C and UART, but they're not applying any encryption along the way. So if you're able to get your hands on the actual hardware guts, you can often like man in the middle some of that and steal some information off the wire. But a lot of them I've also seen callbacks to web servers, and they're not even like HTTPS. It's just like plain HTTP protocol talking to web servers. So you can sniff that in line and see what's going on. And we'll see that a bit more later on. It's easy as pie to own these things. Like I was saying earlier, it's highly trivial. It's a lot of old techniques on new devices. So, I mean, I see bugs like MS03-whatever on some like devices that was made in 2012. And it's just because they're running legacy systems a lot of times. It's really common for these devices to be running things like Windows XP SP0 or Windows XP Embedded or like really old Linux versions. So you'll notice that like you've got this treasure trove of like bugs and techniques that you use like in years past, and you can reuse them, and it's almost like reliving the golden era all over again. Because you're like, yes, it's actually worked. I've seen devices where like there is no etc shadow file because it's so old that it only uses etc password, and like just really crazy stuff like that. Oh my God, O-Day! Everybody likes to have like zero-day exploits, and these devices will have a bunch of those. And even if it's not something you've seen before, it's really easy to find out whether it's like a callback to a web server that's like vulnerable to file inclusion, or if like there's a race condition in the login screen that you can bypass and become the admin regardless. The kind of things that I find like 90% of the time don't require a ton of skills, so it's kind of fun. And electrical engineering skills are not needed. When I first started doing this, they were like, oh, it sounds like what you're doing is called hardware hacking. And I was like, ooh, hardware hacking, that's a kind of a good name for it. And then I like Googled for like hardware hacks, and I was like, oh, like obviously you stumble onto stuff like Hackaday. And you're like, man, these people are like getting down in there, or like hacking away at Super NESs and like making them super cool. Like I'm way too noob for that. I'll never be able to do this in my life. I should just give up now. But I've picked up some skills as I've gone along. But in general, I've noticed a lot of these skills aren't down low on the hardware level. You can definitely get that low and like extract the firmware of the device and start looking at bugs in its operating system. But a large chunk of the bugs you're just going to find just in the UI, because their UI has to be really, it has to have a lot of functionality because they have to have users using it all the time. It has to be inviting, and that often takes precedence over securing it as long as it looks pretty. So I was talking about some of the plaintext protocols earlier. So when I got into this, I was looking for a way to interface with like a ton of serial protocols so that if I had to go down to the hardware level, I could. And I was like, well, maybe I can use my Arduino for this. And I started working on it, and it was fun, but it was hard. And then someone said, hey, dude, you're an idiot. The Bus Pirate's $30 and it already does this. So I went and I bought a Bus Pirate. And it's that little red thing right over there. Very similar to an Arduino in that like you can program it over USB to make it do different things, or you can even just like completely interface over it and just through USB and do a bunch of really fun stuff. and it has a bunch of the standard serial protocols like I2C, UART, JTAG, SPI, FTDI, just basically everything under the sun. They're super common, and it allows you to do a lot of things like really easily. Like earlier today, we were like hacking away at the badges, and one of the people I was hanging out with was like, "Man, I really wish I could sniff like what was going on over USB to see how it's sending this information." Well, with the Bus Pirate, had I brought mine, we would have been able to plug into it, and they've got like sniffers for almost every one of these protocols. So you just like it's a macro too. You're just like M1, and it starts sniffing. Like it's not hard at all, super easy to do, and yeah, and just like sits there and lets you know all the data that comes through. So it makes life really easy, especially when I was actually on a gig and we had hardware level access, and I noticed that when a credit card was being swiped, it was being encrypted further down in the hardware, and so I found a live trace, I plugged into it, and I actually sat there with my Bus Pirate, swiped the test credit card, and saw my credit card information in plain text. I then did that again further down, where I assumed all the encryption was happening, and then it was gone. It was all encrypted and jumbled and just completely useless. But had I been a criminal, I would do something where I would solder onto that live trace and start collecting credit card information that way. So you start to really see some of the underlying issues with on the hardware level when you start poking around with it, poking around at it with things like the Bus Pirate. So I've kind of broken non-traditional systems up into a couple different categories, and these are just the most common that I've seen. Like these are by far the most prevalent, kiosk-like systems. Oh my God, they're everywhere. They're in airports, they're in hotels, they are like in stores. I've seen a couple of them. Just like so much craziness about kiosks. They're everywhere. I like them a lot because they're really easy to hack, and I like things that are easy to hack. So here's kind of like some of the criteria and things I see with kiosk-like devices. They're often touchscreen. Hell, we've had touchscreen kiosks before we had touchscreen telephones. It's just like that was their signature thing. You can walk up to it at an airport and check your flight information or print out your boarding pass. So you're just kind of touching away, having a good time. USB for the win. These things have USB out the yazoo. Just start looking around for them, and you'll see USB ports everywhere that they shouldn't be, externally facing. There's like they almost like, except when you're dealing with Linux systems, I'd say, and even sometimes then, they run as local administrators. So like as soon as you break out of that kiosk thing that looks all nice and pretty, you have administrator access on that box. You can run whatever you want, start your Bitcoin miner, make them join your botnet. Do whatever you want to do, even just like RM it and just be like, figure it out. There's hidden menus on these things, and that's the coolest thing I found out. Like, oh yeah, I can break out and run commands, but there's like hidden menus that let you do really funky stuff. So like, I'll be showing an example of a hidden menu later on, but I've developed a technique for finding hidden menus. Besides just like poking all the corners like crazy, if the company has their logo on the kiosk, just like bash away at that logo, and like 9 times out of 10, that is where the hidden menu is, and it's used for stuff like employee login or whatnot. But it's really cool when you see that little box pop up and you're like, yes. It's easy breakouts. If they've got a keyboard, you can like oftentimes break out using their own keyboard, or if you do unexpected things to their user interface, a lot of times you'll crash the user interface and just be dumped back out into a Windows environment and like start poking around doing cool things. If you've got USB access, plug in a USB keyboard and it's game over. At like 99% of the time I've done that, I've broken out of the kiosk and destroyed it. Often Windows XP, and it's really prevalent to have pixie booting on these things. I guess to show of hands, who knows what pixie booting is? Alright, cool, almost everybody. So here's the cool thing about pixie booting. Metasploit has a module already built in that will listen for pixie booting and serve it back up a malicious image where it adds you as an administrator. So basically the attack is like this. You sit there with here I've actually got one, with a network tap of some sort, or like use a switch or however you want to do it. Here's a network tap to just kind of let me sit in line. I got this one from the Hack 5 people, so shout out to them. But yeah, so like you sit down there with your computer and you run the Metasploit module, and then you like yank the power cord out of the kiosk and you plug it back in, and then you wait for it, and by default it's like booting up by Pixie. It sees the Metasploit server that's like, hey, I've got this Pixie image, owned. It's really that easy. When I discovered that, I was like mind blown. This is the easiest hack I've ever done. It's so cool. Like, forget all your protection. You just got owned. I don't care how strong your password was, because now I'm an administrator on your box. So kiosk-like systems, like other systems, but probably more than the others, have accessible USB ports, which was another really bad thing to have. USB ports should be hidden. Customers don't need them, and you shouldn't leave stuff around that's USB accessible. So, I guess it's the first time I'll do this. Does anyone have a legitimate reason why you should, why you would ever have a customer plug their USB drive or keyboard or mouse or anything into your device? So that's the only one I've noticed, right? And amazing, they've got decent security. Because they've seen that, and they're like, oh, that's the only one I've noticed.
Jukeboxes have USB?
I've seen some jukeboxes. They're not very popular. I think jukeboxes in general are not that popular. And DDR machines, there's this off-brand of like DDR where you can upload your like songs and iScores. Those are the only reasons. Like that's the only thing that even makes sense to me. And yet I've seen even ATMs with USB ports. Like, what? Why? So you can put my receipt on my flash drive? Like, I don't know.
For updates. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So. For updates, it should be on the inside of the box. You shouldn't really give it to your consumer. Like the tech should have to come out, open up the ATM, plug in and do the updates. You shouldn't just like have them out. But yeah, so you definitely don't want to leave things, especially things that are connected to USB ports, like keyboards. This is actually in a self-checkout unit. I was testing it, and this is at a live store. We were we found a bunch of vulnerabilities in their line of self-checkout units, and then he said, well, I want to see if these, because it was in a lab, and he was like, I want to see if these affect our real units. So we went out there, and the first thing I did was like, I opened up the latch, and bam, there's like a USB keyboard in there, and it may not seem that important, but a lot of our breakouts and attacks depended on USB keyboard, and out in the field, they had actually covered up the USB ports. Normally you could like lift the screen and tilt it back and you would see the USB ports. They had a metal plate over that, and so we had no USB access. But as soon as I opened that latch and I saw the keyboard, I was like, I wonder if it's plugged in. I broke out of the kiosk because it was plugged in, and then like just started attacking their payment card network from there, kind of proving that like it's got visibility into that because it has to, because it's doing transaction data, and yeah, and so it's really bad to the point where they had like a nationwide like check to see if there was keyboards under there, and I retested them this year, and there's no keyboards. They did a really good job. But yeah, so don't leave things. It's too easy. I know it's for a convenience thing for like the next tech that comes out, but if it's convenient for a tech, it's convenient for a hacker. So I gave this talk at Bsides, Seattle, I want to say. And someone had to make me look bad. I was like, there's no legitimate reason, and I had addressed the original things, like, oh yeah, like photo printers, this, that, and the other, but I was like, there's no reason, like, there's no reason for consumers to have it. And so I go to the Seattle airport, and I'm waiting to fly back home to Orlando, and I see this thing. It's like the Digiboo. I won't even talk about how bad this thing is. Like, it's got open Wi-Fi, and you can just like connect to it. Like, that's a whole other talk in and of itself. But yeah, there's like 2 USB ports, and they're right next to the credit card reader. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. I asked really politely to the airport if I could like poke around if they had it in the lab, and sure enough they did. So they let me poke around, and I plugged in my USB, and I was kind of goofing around. I noticed that it mounted it, so I was like, that's cool. Then I plugged in my keyboard, broke out of the kiosk software, not only stole all the movies they had on there, but also uploaded my own movies that were just like a troll face going troll over and over again. I just replaced every file with that, and sure enough, I went and like I feel stupid for doing this, but I paid for a troll face I knew I was going to get. But best $20 ever spent. But more importantly, there's some really bad weaknesses with these USB ports in particular, and long story short, like it's really flimsy in this area, and you can break off from the USB ports. It's so close to the credit card reader. I was actually able to interface with the credit card reader and see data come through. Yeah, no bueno. It's not the stealthiest of the packs, but it definitely was interesting. Like they were standing there, kind of freaked out that I was reading credit card information, and they. I'm surprised they didn't pull it. I flew through Seattle recently, and I saw this thing, so I was like, I need free Wi-Fi. I'm gonna hop on that Digiboo. So if you're ever in Seattle, SeaTac Airport, need Wi-Fi, Digiboo. All right, vending machines. Vending machines are awesome. I love hacking vending machines because it typically means I'm gonna get some kind of free merchandise, free food, free coffee, free something. Free money is even better, but yeah, vending machines, oh, how I love them. Oh, so very much. So the big things with vending machines are debug codes to allow people to like check how much money they've made off their vending machine, or like adjust sales or prices, a bunch of different things. This one's kind of popular, like especially with old school Coke machines, like the 4231 thing, where you're like, whoa my god, and then it got on the internet, so they made that completely useless, but it's still kind of cool to show your friends, like, hey, watch this, bam, bam, bam. They have limited security, because who the heck's gonna hack a vending machine, right? Yeah. But so like they've got decent physical security, but even that's lacking. A lot of them will just have like a 7-pin tubular lock, and you're like, oh, really? Okay, I'll just go buy a pick for that, and I'll be through that in 2 seconds. There's no encrypted swipe. I don't know if this is like an actual term, but basically, when you swipe your credit card, it doesn't encrypt it in the reader. It encrypts it later on in the hardware, which means, like the hack I was talking about earlier, if you're able to tap into that reader, you can read it before it's encrypted, and then happy fun times. There's, despite the fact that they take payment card information, their businesses are not required to have their vending machines tested for PCI compliance, because they either use the cellular network using like CDMA or GSM. So they're like, oh, that's secure, like, right? What was that?
Like GSM is even secure.
Yeah, like exactly, but they're like, no, it's on its own network and rah, rah, rah. I'm like, no, I'll set up a femto cell and sniff all this anyway. Or they use Wi-Fi. I've only seen one vending machine that I was actively trying to hack that use, because none of them really like broadcast out their SSID, but only one of them used encryption, and it was WEP, so doesn't matter. Woo, it's gonna take an extra 5 seconds. So it's like, it's on just open Wi-Fi, so you can hop on that and do all sorts of nefarious things. Kismet is your friend there when identifying those access points. So I was talking about debug codes. Hacking vending machines is no longer just about like 4231. There's like physical hacks you can do. This is one I found on 4chan that it's about buy one, get one. And basically, it's kind of hard to read these steps, so I'll stand here, I guess, to read them. So there's a lot of arrows and lines, and those things are confusing. But basically, you put your money where the money thing goes. You select your drink with the drink selector things. You immediately push on the door flap to block the drink on belt. So basically the way it works is on these newer machines, there's like this slidey down thing, and then it has another like slidey up thing. So
it's a conveyor.
What was that?
It's a conveyor. It's like a
it's a conveyor.
It's
yeah.
a conveyor on rails, and then the conveyor goes up, and then there's a conveyor belt on that.
Yeah, it takes it that way. Yeah. So basically, what they're doing is they have a block here that allows the refrigerator to stay cold, and then like that slides into another thing where you get your soda. But if you like push it, and in this case it's the green thing, if you push down the green thing, you can put your hand against the sliding thing and keep it from opening. So what that does is, it's like, oh, because the basic logic behind this is, if this lever goes up, or like if this lever gets pushed out, then there's a soda in there. And I guess it's a decent way to think about it, because if it's empty, it wouldn't move. So I guess that makes sense, but they could have also just checked, hey, how much quantity is left in this spot, because they allow you to do that from the debug menu. But because they decided to implement it that way, it's not able to open the door, and it says, oh, I must have not actually grabbed the soda, my bad. and it goes and grabs your soda again. It drops it to the bottom and then grabs it again. So now you've got like it's really cool when it works, and it's really terrible when it fails. When it works out, it's like Tetris, they line up perfectly. When it fails, it's like an atomic bomb just went off because and not a good time. So yeah, that's a really good way to buy one get one sodas if you're into that kind of thing. But it's these kind of vulnerabilities that aren't really looked into. Like, no one decided to check their logic to be like, hey, what happens if there is a soda? But they're like, what happens if there's a soda and the machine jams and it can't open the door? Like, no one decided to test that, and I think this still works. I'm pretty sure this still works.
They changed the design of the machines now to lock that door, so you can't actually access it and block the soda from coming through.
Yeah.
I've been looking, for some reason I was looking at them this past few weeks, and they've changed the design specifically where you can't access that.
That's pretty cool, but what happens if I force it down?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
So, yeah. So, and like what he was saying, they basically they're like, oh, to stop this, we'll just make the door not open, like not be able to open until there's a soda in there. But they didn't fix the primary cause, which is the fact that they're not checking for quantity before going and grabbing a soda. Like, that's even just more energy efficient. Like, hey, is there soda here? Nope, not even gonna bother. But Coke and Pepsi and whoever else just wants to do it that way. Hacking's delicious. Oh my god. I'm a pretty skinny looking dude, but I have the fattest of inner fat man in me. I love sweets. I love dessert. Oh, like I've hacked one of these things. Heaven. Like that's a lot of ice cream to choose from for free and eat and call it a pen test. I don't know about you guys, like you don't even have to pay me. I just got stuffed on this ice cream. But hacking's delicious. I've gotten free coffee before. That was a cool pen test. I got free coffee and like coffee for the entire office and like hot cocoa and but it was really cool because one of the findings was that like I don't remember exactly what I wrote it up as, but like what I really wanted to call it was like coffee trolling. You could change the recipes, so you're like, oh, you want hot chocolate? Yeah, 90% water. Like, no milk, no marshmallows. Oh, you want coffee? Make it all decaf. So you can totally troll people, like if you just want to like mess with people for fun. Yeah, there's some really, I think one of the hot chocolates I made was like straight chocolate, like no milk, no water, just like glunky mess. I want to find a chicken nugget vending machine because chicken nuggets are delicious. If you know of one, please let me know. Please.
Japan, man.
Japan. So here's some story time. Everyone loves stories. This is the device that cried sequel-I. Actually, some people. Yeah.
I have one question real quick.
Yeah.
You started making the pizza machines.
Yeah, that.
You gone up against one of those?
I have not yet, but I need to. Like, I'm telling you, like, oh, cheese pizza with all the toppings, same price. That's the only hack I need.
I need to go to Japan and you take a beer vending machine.
Yeah, oh my god, I would be so drunk. So drunk. So this is a device that cried sequel-I, SQL injection. Some of the people in this room actually kind of worked with me on this. There's this kiosk software in a lot of hotels. We discovered it during DerbyCon, and they had like, if you went to DerbyCon last year, they had these like mounted touchscreen things like directories, and we were like, Lewis knows how to do this kind of stuff. Let's mess around. So we started like just messing around, and I found like a hidden menu, this, that, and the other, but it had a password prompt. Shortly after, we come back to Orlando and we're hanging out, and I get a phone call like, dude, this thing's like calling back to a web server. And so I'm like, all right, I need to see this now. So I get sent over the details, and I'm like, man, it's making a SQL query. I wonder if this thing is vulnerable. So like one thing led to another, and SQL map. SQL injection, like you see the database, there's a bunch of fun stuff, and then like I'm like, well, I wonder what they're doing. So I start poking around a little bit more, and it's like, oh, username table or users table, usernames, passwords aren't encrypted, admin user, password was admin. Win. I find the admin panel, log in. At this point, I'm like, I need to report this because this is terrible that this is even on the internet right now. I log in and notice like the back end is like, has a bunch of fun stuff, but it's nothing that I can really do that's like really cool. I guess like lets me check the status of their like 50,000 directories worldwide. So that was kind of cool, like, oh, like that's how large they are. But I tried those same credentials on FTP and it threw me to a different directory. A directory that had their source code and their updates. So that I could like, oh, this works out cool because there was an update portion of that admin panel. So now I can push out my update to 50,000 machines worldwide. Easy botnet. So like I'm like, this is kind of crazy. And like I go through the source code and the source code has like hard-coded passwords in it. It's just like terrible. Like they had hard-coded information to their SQL database, FTP server, the default user and login for the actual directory system. Like this thing like couldn't have been worse. Like I to this day I don't know how they could have made it worse. But I report it and I'm like, this is bad. I don't hear anything. Don't hear anything. Don't hear anything. So I'm like, I'm gonna reach out again. Maybe they're just a really busy company. I haven't heard of them before, but maybe they're busy. Email them again. Don't hear anything. Don't hear anything. Don't hear anything. It's been like 6 months now. I'm really not liking this company. I decided to FTP back in. Can still FTP in. Can still access the admin panel. Can still make a really quick like Bitcoin botnet. They still haven't patched it as of today. It's really bad. That's why I won't disclose the actual vendor. But what was that? NSA? Maybe. But yeah, so this is kind of the stuff that you'll see, like really dumb stuff, like making a call to a MySQL database and like having the username and password of admin, and just being really, really dumb because they're like, who's gonna hack our wall-mounted directory? This guy. Cool story, bro. Tell it again. They say pictures are worth, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So I've got a couple thousand words for you guys. Dat source. I blanked it out. If I messed up, whoops. As up here it says the server, ftp.com. Username, password, sk. Root path, special FTP updates. Update path, special FTP update / common folder path, blah, blah, blah. This isn't important. But here's like where it installs. Okay, I really got to make sure I didn't mess up here. Okay, yeah. So here's where it installs and has all the information on that. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. More source. SQL Server info. There's SQL servers at sql.com. User is DSI, password is DS, catalog is 44. Catalog is what they named their database, by the way. I don't know who uses that nomenclature, but whatever. So the admin info, the user pin is 1234. This is, I don't think anyone ever guessed this thing. This is legit. The admin pin is, the admin pin was 1196, and we'll see what the admin pin's used for a little later on. There's no default welcome logo. There's a timeout, so like if you don't log in within 5 seconds, it's like, screw you, I'm going home. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. So what can we do with this? Hidden menus. So this was really easy. Bash like crazy right here. I actually noticed the same kiosk during my company retreat out in Denver, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have some fun time. So I started like bashing up here. So right down here you can see the Sheraton logo. Had the admin menu not been in like one of those corners, like always go for the logo, like bam, 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 and it'll work. So I do this and I get presented with this screen. I know 1196 and 1234. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. I'm like, oh, no default. How can I get past this? Then I was like, what if I do things that it's not expecting? So like, what if I open up a menu and then close a menu and open another one really fast and do that for an obnoxious amount of time? It took a lot shorter than I thought. After basically going like this, I guess you need the other slide. After basically tapping this corner and pressing OK like 5 times, I was like, it thought that I was logged in. That race condition. So then we get presented with this thing, and like there's even a cursor up here, which is kind of cool. I didn't mess around too much with that. But we get to like another hidden menu. There's 1 through 9. It's like, I have no idea what this even means. It might help if I was actually logged in. I'm sure I shouldn't even be able to see this right now. But I was like, whatever, 5's in the middle, that's a good idea. So, beep, I pressed on 5. And they gave me a bunch of options like, hey man, this room's way too hot, so put down the AC. Or, hey, this room is way too cold, put up the AC. I need AV assistance. Hey, you know what, I'm gonna unlock this room right now, this conference room, it's cool, it's fine, don't worry about it. I can order food. I can order beverages. I could like get a meeting, I don't even know what a meeting specialist is. And I could refresh the room, which, again, I don't know what that is. Like they run around with Febreze or something.
F5 on the room.
Yeah, yeah, they just F5 the room and then you're good, right? So I did like a bunch of really fun things. Like I unlocked all the conference rooms and like started having like parties and land. Like it was some really fun stuff. And then I remembered that I wanted to troll people because that's what I love to do. So what did I do? I said, well, all the rooms already got the AC on because we're in Denver and it's like winter time. I'm gonna say it's still too cold. In fact, it is so cold. You should crank the heater up to the max. It is that cold. A lot of sweaty people in suits. I don't advocate trolling your company. That's a great way to get promoted to customer. So what's next? I gotta research. There's a lot of research. It's kind of hard to like categorize like all the different things. Like I want to test ATMs more. I want to test voting machines because I want to pick the next president. All by myself. Like one vote can count, damn it, when no one else can. I want to work with vendors because like I've hacked a certain vendor so many times where at this point I'm like, dude, I'm basically giving you free pen testing and I kind of want to get paid for that. And I want to help them patch their bugs. Like if they're going to release a new product, let me test it. I'll make sure it's all right, and then you can release it, and then you won't have to hear from me in 2 months when I hack it anyway. I have to develop methodologies. Like this is another issue with like the large scale of non-traditional systems. Like I can't really apply ATM hacking to a self-checkout. Like some things may be crossover, but like it's not going to work, and I can't really apply like hacking a little black box that works as like a proxy to hacking a hotel directory system. Like it's hard to develop like specified toolkits and methodologies just because it's so much stuff to the point where I kind of like I've started developing a couple methodologies, but my go-to methodology is what I call the kitty cat attack. Basically, I don't know how many of you guys have cats. Show of hands, actually, who has cats? You guys are all awesome. Cats like to show their affection by like massaging you, like kneading on you, and so like they do this kind of motion. So whenever I go up to a kiosk, I just go like, I love you, kiosk. I love you, man. And like a lot of times I'll find breakouts, like hidden menus that way, like kitty cat attack. It works, but like that's not a real methodology. Like today I'll be teaching you guys the kitty cat attack. Yeah, that is O-date. None of you guys can use that. So I need funding because like no one really wants to get their non-traditional systems tested, which means I need to go out and test these or like buy them and like do my own testing. I've been looking into buying an ATM. Holy crap, that's a lot of money. Like it might be cheaper for me to make my own business and then rent an ATM than it would be to just buy one flat out. Kiosks are also pretty expensive, especially when you get to kiosk software. It's pretty proprietary stuff. I can't just go on like Pirate Bay and pull it down. Like it's hard to get your hands on. It's expensive because it's a very niche market. So dollar bill, y'all. I accept monies and bitcoins and litecoins. But in all seriousness, though, like it's hard. Like between finding time and money, it's really hard to cover this all by myself. So I hope that after this talk, you guys all kind of want to hack all the things. Kickstarter. Let Lewis hack things. Kickstarter. Chicken nugget vending machine hacker Kickstarter. It's a new market. We kind of saw this blow up with mobile security, right? Where they're like, everyone's like, oh God, cell phones are crap. Like they are like the most insecure thing ever. Well, it's because for years before we never pen tested them. Kind of like vending machines and kiosks and ATMs. We never really pen test them. So it's a new market to kind of go out there and do research. And it feels kind of cool because like I was a 90s kid, but I didn't really get into hacking until the early 2000s. So by the time I was coming in, like a bunch of research was already done. Like I didn't get to pave the way. I wasn't a pioneer of hacking, but like doing this, I'm one of the only people I know of that's like going after these systems. So I'm kind of pioneering and doing my own thing, and it feels cool to be able to give back to the community that kind of raised me, I guess. But yeah, so it's cool. It's a new market for both making that money and just research in general. So, oh man, I timed this pretty well. So any questions, anyone, about anything, maybe even not related to the talk?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are arcade machines, like game things, are those considered under the same category?
Oh yeah, a lot of those, especially like stuff like Dave and Buster's, where they take your card and diminish points and stuff on there. Hey. Oh, you have two questions?
I wanted to tell you that I didn't see that thing that you were holding up very close when you done.
Very. What was I holding?
Network tap.
Oh, the network tap. Yeah, here.
Hey, Sweet Daddy has one.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That has a lens.
It's just like this.
Oh.
Yeah.
That isn't the throwing star though, it's the...
Do you want it? I've got like 9 of them. Here you go. Yeah, no problem. What's your other question?
Doesn't it on the TV look Sally?
Oh, this guy over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
President's Law.
Thanks. Getting back to your arcade machine question, especially things like, that's Blizzard. She's awesome, by the way. I've been hanging out with her like all weekend. She's amazing.
The rest of you guys suck.
Yeah, well, you...
Free badge, you scored a land tax.
Social engineer. Yeah, so to get back to the arcade machine thing, yeah, they're just as vulnerable, and they're connected to the networks a lot because they've got to have a server that says, hey, this ID is matched with this card, and they've got this much money left on their card. So definitely, well, I won't advocate you going out and hacking them, but
It's right down the street.
Yeah, it's right down the street. So I mean, hey, anything could happen.
What about, okay, with that, what about those like golden tea machines that take the credit card readers on them?
I don't think I've seen one of those. You want to explain more?
Golf games.
Oh, yeah, dude. I would totally want to hack one of those things. Like, those are definitely a hardware level thing just because there's not much to interface with. But I would love, like, if anyone knows a mini golf owner, operator, I don't know what they're called, I would love to hack one of those things. They rent them?
MagStripe, like network MagStripe readers. Would you consider that to be one of your?
Oh hell yeah, dude! Like even if the MagStripe reader itself isn't network connected, if it's on a device that's network connected, like because you've got to call back to a database somewhere, right? Like you've got to do your logging or your reading. Those are fair game. Like those are non-traditional systems if I've ever seen one. Like who thinks about hacking a MagStripe reader? You know, so what? Oh, sorry.
The MagStripe readers are in plain text.
Oh, they're in plain text.
I haven't found an encrypted one yet.
All right, there you go. Yeah, like a lot of them, like there's an algorithm you can use to decrypt because it turns it into sound and then it processes it. But yeah, you can totally hack them.
Have you messed with the price scanners at like stores?
So the most common price scanner, let me see if I can remember this. Starts with a T. I can't remember, but I have messed around with it a little bit. I have a buddy who worked at a Target and they had one that was kind of out of commission. And so I was like, can I mess around with it? And he was like, yeah, go for it, have fun. I've like broken their admin menu. It's really crappy. Like the password was like 1234. I don't know if that's through all of the machines, but it was definitely the case in this. And yeah, it lets you do really fun stuff like update prices, and so that's always fun. Like get milk for 2 pennies, and they're looking at you like,
Card readers are also frequently either USB or PS2 keyboard inputs, and they are usually not sanitizing the input at all. So if you have a card writer, you can test
Yeah, you can do stuff like dude, I've seen ATMs where like they're dumped out into a Windows like environment with the command prompt open. I'm like, I want to know how the heck they did that. So yeah, I'm sure it's like something like that, the reader had a bug in it. Anyone else?
Oh, yeah, I would like to point out, Regions Bank, their ATMs from Windows ME. Anyone was
There you go.
Yeah.
So when are you planning your trip to Japan?
I want to go to Japan within the next year or two, and if I do, I'll probably never come back. Like, they've got vending machines for everything.
Use panties?
That was my question. I was gonna ask if you're gonna hack a used vending machine.
Hey, dude, totally. Like, I'll have all the used pants. Then I can sell them on eBay and make a profit.
So it's a good thing the mag strike readers aren't like anything like gas pumps that have 3 or 4 keys across the U.S. that are, plain text. So good thing they can't be stolen there.
Yeah. If you own a gas pump, I totally want to hack one.
So, what about like vending machines that have like high value things?
Oh, like the Best Buy machines?
Yeah.
Yeah, like so. At the Orlando International Airport, there's like a Best Buy machine, and they're all over, but that's the most common one I see.
Proactive too for the face stuff.
Yeah, Proactive has the face the same system. Apple's got them. Yeah, like so those things where it's like, oh man, I would totally love that $3,000 MacBook. Yeah, they're vulnerable too. they're vulnerable as well, and to a lot of these same attacks. I wouldn't advocate going out and hacking one, but I can tell you that they're pretty easy to hack. Yes.
Is there a way to hack like those like self-redemption centers? Like you put a dollar in and you try to knock the thing over. Is there a way to hack that and you get like unlimited tries?
That might be something more on a hardware level where like you could mess with it. So similar to that, what the Russians are doing in casinos like worldwide is they've built like a tiny EMP generator, and they'll stick it next to a slot machine. And when the EMP goes off, with this brand or maybe every slot machine, it goes off, it causes a short circuit, and it jackpots the machine, so suddenly they get like all the money. So like that attacks the hardware. It's like a hardware denial of service. So I'm sure you could do something similar, like maybe not exactly similar, but yeah, there's always like those weird bugs where like if you can cause the hardware to like freak out for a second, like unlimited lives, God mode status. Anyone else? Oh, yeah.
Not a question, but shameless plug, since we're at the end of the day. Raffle tickets and spare badges are still up for sale if you want spare badges to hack up, since we're talking about hacking things.
Yeah, the spare badges are awesome because if you fry yours, it sucks. And the raffle tickets, we're giving out some pretty cool things. Like there's a mini poner, which is a really cool piece of equipment to let you hack all the things. There's like books from No Starch Press that really good, like practical malware analysis is in there, gray hat hacking, like a lot of really cool books. So, and the raffle tickets are cheap, so may as well at least try.
And there's also
going to help us do this thing.
Yeah, they help us do it next year. We try to do this as free as possible.
This year.
Well, yeah.
We have two lockpick. We have 2 lockpick sets. One that comes with a bunch of stuff from Serapick, and then a Southward pick set, which is a very quality pick set, and they're actually located here in Orlando, Florida. And both those guys have graciously donated that. The only thing with those is we don't actually have them, so we'll have to get your name and address if you win those.
And social, credit card number.
Your mom's maiden name, your first pet, the street you grew up on.
Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, price.
Raffle tickets are $3
yeah, it's raffle.
or $5 for $9 for 5 tickets. What was that?
The picks are part of the raffle, yeah.
They have to be shipped to you because they're not here.
Yeah. So just I like to give thanks to people in my slides, especially if they weren't able to be here. Patrick Fleming, he's been like a mentor to me. He gave me my first non-traditional system gig where he basically told me, "Hey, go do this," and I said, "I've never done that." He said, "Listen, I need you to think like a criminal. Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do this. Do what a criminal would do. Go, get out of here." But I like that. He threw me into the fire, and I came out alive and a lot better for it. Accumont Labs for letting me poke at hardware and like work on this talk because I sure as hell wasn't working on reports when I was working on this. And you for coming to my talk and hopefully learning some new things or laughing at pictures at the very least. That's all I got, so thanks guys.
We're just gonna gather ourselves real quick and we're gonna